Welcome pilots to Cameron Park Airport, Oscar 61, a small, primarily general aviation, public use airport located in the town of Cameron Park, California. This video is meant for pilots interested in visiting Cameron Park Airport, and through this video you will learn the idiosyncrasies of this airport so your visits are safe and successful. In this pilot's guide video, we will provide an overview of the airport, including the surrounding terrain, and walk through approach considerations for each runway direction. Oscar 61 is nestled in the foothills of the Sierra Mountain Range. The airport is approximately 32 miles east of Sacramento International Airport and 55 miles west of South Lake Tahoe Airport and sits at 1,287 feet of elevation. Oscar 61 accommodates primarily single-engine aircraft under 12,500 pounds. The airport serves the community with facilities for recreational flying, compassion and medical flights, and local emergency response, including medical evacuation, law enforcement, and training. Commercial aviation support facilities include aircraft maintenance and restoration services, and there are a couple of active flight schools offering professional pilot training. Airport public facilities include 4 transient tie-downs, 100 low-lead self-serve fuel availability, and a public restroom. If you are visiting Oscar 61 and you would like to grab a bite to eat, there are currently 2 excellent choices right across the street, just east of the airport. Now, you will notice that the airport sits in a small valley and is surrounded by rising terrain that must be accounted for during your takeoffs and landings. Please be aware that the camera tends to flatten the landscape in this video. You will also notice that the Cameron Park Airport has an adjacent residential community, which we call an Airpark, that has access to the airport. The roads in this community are extra wide to accommodate homeowner aircraft, and the roads might be confused with the airport runway and/or taxiways. So be sure you're lining up to the marked runway as you descend to land. Speaking of runways, let's discuss each runway direction and its challenges so you're prepared when you arrive. As described in the Oscar 61 chart supplement, Cameron Park Airport has a single paved runway oriented 1331. Runway 31 is the preferred calm wind runway, as wind permits of course, and has a displaced threshold that is 1,509 feet down the runway, leaving a landing runway distance of 2,992 feet. This displaced threshold supports the extended approach required to clear the hills that are approximately 1,500 feet MSL on the approach and descent into runway 31. It is recommended that you be at 1,700 feet MSL or higher as you cross the top of this hill during your descent. This may require a steeper approach than you might fly at airports that have flatter terrain. There is a slight uphill gradient as you land on runway 31 from the displaced threshold to the end of the runway. Now let's talk about runway 13. When landing from the north, runway 13 has a displaced threshold of 191 feet, leaving 3,860 feet for landing. There is a slight downhill gradient as you land from the north to south toward the center of the runway. While the purpose of displaced thresholds is to assure a pilot an obstruction-free descent for landing, pilots are encouraged to use them for takeoff, so they have access to the entire runway surface for takeoff operations. Now let's review the taxiways around the runway. The main taxiway is located on the east side of the airport, and it provides access to the fuel station, transient parking, flight schools, and hangars. If you need fuel, follow the yellow taxi lines to position your plane for refueling. There are 2 spots available. As the signs in this area state, please don't perform any run-ups due to the traffic and nearby hangars being blasted by debris. You can do your run-up near the entrances to each runway. The East Taxiway enters the runway at the south end and midfield. If you want to take off on runway 13 from the East Taxiway, you need to back taxi north from the fuel tank area to the smaller West Taxiway at the north end of runway 13. Of course, make sure to check for traffic and make a call on CTAF before entering the runway and back taxiing. There is a small taxiway northwest of the runway that provides access to the Airpark from the north side, as well as a short taxi to runway 13. As noted on the signage, please perform any run-ups by the North Airpark Gate prior to taxiing to the north end of runway 13. If you need fuel or services from this northwest area, you will need to back taxi to the center of the runway to access the east side taxiway. As Oscar 61 is pilot controlled, be sure to make announcements on the common frequency, 123.05, as you enter the airspace and fly the pattern. Both runways have standard left patterns, and 45-degree entries at 2,300 feet MSL are recommended. There are 2 windsocks at Oscar 61 located here and there. There is also a wind tee located next to this windsock. Like any airport surrounded by rising terrain, the winds can swirl in this valley, and sometimes the windsocks may show different wind directions. You could experience wind shifts as you descend to land, although typically the winds smooth out as you enter ground effect. As with every landing, be prepared to go around if you don't like your airspeed or position as you get close to touchdown. Let's mention noise abatement. The airport is in the heart of a growing residential area, and it's imperative that pilots are good neighbors to the rest of the community. When entering the pattern for runway 31, please stay west of the ridge to reduce noise for those neighbors on the ridge. During flight in the pattern, avoid flying over the trailer park located to the northeast and the schools located to the northwest of the airport. As you depart both runways, please climb to 2,000 feet before making any departure turns to reduce noise. Now, if you're meeting someone at the airport, there's a small parking lot off of Cameron Park Drive just east of the transient parking area. Your guests can park there, and there is a gate to allow access between the airport and the parking area. There is a small overnight fee for overnight parking, which can be paid by the fuel station. If you are visiting friends in the Cameron Park Airpark, please discuss gate operation with them, and they can help you access the airpark through these gates. Now let's summarize with the following 3 things to remember about flying into Oscar 61 Cameron Park Airport. Number 1, respect the terrain. Remember to be 1,700 feet MSL or above on your final approach into 3-1. And the displaced threshold will give you about 3,000 feet of landing runway. When landing on runway 13, there is a slight downhill gradient, so make sure you manage your airspeed on touchdown. Okay, number 2, the airport is adjacent to a residential airpark, which is really cool, but it can be confusing. So be sure to land on the airport runways and not on the airpark wide streets. Number 3, come visit. Oscar 61 has 100 low-lead gas, restrooms, and a few fun restaurants within walking distance. The local pilots are friendly and love watching new planes and pilots visit. This video was produced by the Cameron Park Airport Foundation, and we hope you now have the information you need for a safe visit to Oscar 61. For more information about the airport as well as the adjacent airpark, be sure to check out the Cameron Park Airport District website in the link below. Safe flying and blue skies!